Hi everyone, so in today's module we're going to go over Season 4, Episode 17 of The Simpsons, Last Exit to Springfield. If you haven't seen the episode yet, this is a great time to pause the video and go watch it. So in this episode, Mr. Burns decides to save some money by doing away with his employee's dental plan. And at first, Homer is totally willing to go along with it until he remembers that Lisa needs braces and he won't be able to afford them without dental insurance. While trying to convince the other plant workers to reject Burns's offer, Homer accidentally becomes the new union representative. Mr. Burns pushes back against continuing to offer the dental plan, so all of the workers go on strike. And through a series of misunderstandings, Mr. Burns is led to believe that Homer is a brilliant tactician and gives in to the union's demands, with the stipulation that Homer steps down from his role as the president of the union. Now, this episode touches on two topics that are really important in America: healthcare and unions. Now, if you've been paying attention to recent political debates, you'll notice that healthcare is constantly coming up as a major topic. And that's because it's really expensive in America. It's not unusual for someone to go into bankruptcy because of medical bills.
Insurance? Oh, yeah, check it. Definitely gonna want some of that. You don't have insurance? Why? How much is this going to cost?
I have no idea, but x-rays alone could be $200.
Well, what are we going to do?
Ooh, there's not much we can do.
Unless I use yours.
No.
Now, people who are low income might be able to qualify for state insurance called Medicaid, but other people either have to get their insurance through their employer or they have to pay a ton of money for private insurance. But even if you're employed, that doesn't necessarily mean that you have insurance. A lot of employers don't offer insurance, or the insurance they offer just isn't enough to cover people's needs. As of this recording, approximately 15% of Americans don't have the insurance that they need. Now, just because an employer offers health insurance, it doesn't mean that it's comprehensive. So it's possible that someone's health insurance plan might only cover medical insurance, but it wouldn't cover vision insurance or dental insurance, which are treated as completely separate. And this is really problematic for people who have families or if they have any dental or vision issues of their own. But even with insurance, sometimes Americans end up spending a ridiculous amount of money. So just for example, the lenses for these glasses, just the lenses, I already had the frames, just the lenses cost me over $300. I have vision insurance and it was still $300 out of pocket for these lenses. So a lot of people will end up, putting off important, dental or vision appointments because they just don't have the coverage for it. Even women who give birth in hospitals who have insurance may end up spending thousands of dollars because of their stay. Some people have high deductible plans, which means that they have to spend a lot of money up front before their medical insurance will kick in and start paying some of the bills. Now, people will choose this if they're relatively healthy and don't think something's going to happen to them because the monthly costs of those plans tends to be quite low. But if something happens to them, they usually end up with massive hospital bills. So when I lived abroad, one of my coworkers was telling me how his neighbor had called an ambulance to take her to the hospital because she was feeling kind of dizzy and not very well, and she didn't think that she should drive herself. And I was shocked that someone would take an ambulance and go to the emergency room for something that was not life-threatening. But then I found out that in a lot of other countries, you can just go to the hospital and be seen. And you can just take an ambulance because they're free. And that is not the case in the US at all. A trip to the emergency room can easily cost you $300 with insurance, and much more than that without insurance. And the wait times are ridiculous. My grandmother had fallen about a year ago, and we took her to the emergency room. She's 70 some odd years old. She's actively bleeding, and it took 3 hours before a doctor saw us. And that's not unusual. It is not unusual at all for those kinds of wait times in emergency rooms in the US. And as far as ambulances go, you really don't call them unless it's a major, major medical issue. A lot of times ambulances can run anywhere from a few $100s to a couple $1,000s. So you actually will hear stories of people calling Uber drivers to take them to the hospital because they cannot afford to take an ambulance. That's why health insurance through employers is so important, because for a lot of people, that's the only way they're going to get any kind of insurance coverage. But it's important to realize that not all insurance coverage is the same. So a lot of companies might offer health insurance, but they won't offer vision or dental insurance, which they treat as something completely separate. And that's where unions come in. Now, just like what Mr. Burns tried to do in this episode, a lot of companies will try to trim down how much health insurance their policies offer in order to lower their overall costs. But unions make it a lot harder for companies to do this. Now, unions are a collection of workers who band together to protect workers' rights and to stop the company from abusing them. Unions can do incredible things, like have guaranteed leave for bereavement, or protect insurance policies, or make sure that people aren't being overworked. But just like this episode points out, unions are only beneficial to the worker if the people who are leading the unions aren't corrupt. Now, I'm personally a big fan of unions. I think they are absolutely vital to protecting workers' rights and making sure that people work in really safe and equitable workplace environments. That being said, I do recognize that if the leadership of the union is corrupt, it hurts everyone. Because unions try to force employers to provide better working conditions for their employees, which usually cuts into the company's bottom line, a lot of companies will actively discourage unions. When trying to discourage unions, a lot of companies will say that the union dues are just too expensive and it's not worth it for the workers. Delta Airlines actually created quite a scandal when someone posted online an anti-union poster that they had hung up in the company break room. Now, the strength of a union really depends on the number of people who join it. So if only a couple people are in the union, it's going to be really weak and it's not going to have any bargaining power. But if a lot of people are in the union, suddenly they have a lot more power to improve the working conditions for the employees. Unions in America have done a lot of good, from ending child labor to making sure that employees have time off. But if the wrong people are leading the union, it can have disastrous consequences for the workers.
Take him away! You can't treat the working man this way. One day we'll form a union and get the fair and equitable treatment we deserve. Then we'll go too far and get corrupt and shiftless.